The situation surrounding Dr. Heavenly's son's legal troubles has certainly left many people scratching their heads. As we dive into this issue, there's a lot to unravel. Let's talk about the timeline of events, the confusion around the charges and indictment, and what this means moving forward. This story has been all over the place, and as we piece together the information, we can start to understand what exactly happened, how long it took for the case to move forward, and what may come next. First, let's talk about the charges and the timeline that had everyone confused. Dr. Heavenly's son was initially charged in February 2023, and the news came with a flurry of reports. The charges include aggravated assault against a law enforcement officer, a serious accusation that immediately put this case under intense scrutiny. There were also reports of battery involved in this incident. However, there was something odd about the dates. He was charged in February 2023, but official documentation seemed to indicate that the case wasn't actually indicted until March 2025, more than 2 years later. For those who were following the case closely, this timeline didn't add up. As the case progressed, many were left wondering how it could take so long to move from the charge to an actual indictment. This is where things started to get complicated. The difference between a charge and an indictment is crucial in understanding how the legal process works. A charge is when a person is formally accused of a crime, while an indictment is when a grand jury formally charges someone after reviewing evidence, making a decision on whether the case should proceed to trial. In this case, Dr. Heavenly's son was initially charged in 2023, yet the official indictment didn't come until March 2025, which led to a lot of confusion. For those unfamiliar with how legal cases work, it seemed strange that something so serious would sit idle for that long. But as I began to dig deeper, it became clear that this was not a simple delay. It's actually a normal part of the process in some cases. The real difference here is that the case had to go before a grand jury, and once that happened, an indictment was issued. An indictment typically means that the grand jury believes there is enough evidence to move the case forward to trial. This makes sense, especially since the case had been pending for such a long time. It's safe to assume that there was serious evidence presented to the grand jury that led them to make this decision. However, the entire situation is still shrouded in mystery because the actual details of the case are sparse, with only limited information being available to the public. As the news continued to unfold, many people began to question why it took so long for this case to move forward. Some wondered if the authorities were taking their time to build a strong case. Others speculated that there were other factors at play, such as behind-the-scenes negotiations, or perhaps even medical reasons that were preventing a quicker resolution. Regardless of the reasons, it's clear that the indictment marks a significant turning point in the case, and now the focus shifts to what comes next. The next big question is whether the charges will be dropped, reduced, or if a plea deal will be offered. As we've seen in many high-profile cases, plea deals are common, and they can be used to resolve cases without going to trial. Based on the information available, there seems to be a possibility that Dr. Heavenly's son might be offered some kind of plea deal, especially given the time that's passed since the initial charge. It's also important to note that the legal system is often complicated, and things don't always move as quickly as people might expect. The fact that this case took over 2 years to be indicted doesn't necessarily mean it's being mishandled. It could simply be a reflection of how slow the legal process can be. In fact, many cases take years to go through the system, especially if they involve serious charges or complicated legal arguments. Now, let's talk a little bit about the impact this case has had on Dr. Heavenly and her family. As a public figure, Dr. Heavenly is no stranger